I feel like there's two types of people who finish a miler and say never again, and then people who finish a miler, say never again, and the next day wake up and sign up for the next miler. So I assume you were the latter since you've just come out of the George MUT 100 miler. But was that kind of, when you finished your race, did you already have your sights set, and did you feel like, I know that this is my distance and I want to try this again?
Yes, I think I did, because I kind of knew it all along, but I wasn't sure. I couldn't say.
Yes.
You can't say that this is your distance that you think you're going to enjoy more
Yeah.
until you've done it. And then when I did it, I was like, you know what? I like this distance more than I like 100K. I feel like 100K I don't want to say 100K is too short because it is definitely a hard, long, difficult distance. But I think because in a 100 miler, your perception of distance and time is so different. And I'm a slower person, like not slow in terms of like that I'm a slow runner, but like in the way that I do things and prefer to do things. I'm somebody who likes to ponder things. I like to take my time drinking my coffee. I don't like to be rushed when I do things. And I think that distance suits me in the way that even though if you race a 100 miler, I mean, you need to keep moving. There's not so much time to sit and, you can't like sit around and have a picnic, but there's just more time to take things in and to be in the moment, because that to me is the draw of this whole thing. It's like that feeling of being in the moment the entire time. I never think of the whole race as a whole thing from beginning to end. Like if somebody asks me something about what are you going to do at, like 100K, when I'm like at 40Ks or whatever, I'm like, I don't even think about the distance at this stage. I'm thinking about the next rock in front of me.
Yes, you're like, let me make it to the next 2Ks, not 60Ks. I'll figure it out when I get there.
Like really just thinking about where you are right now. And I think in life, I struggle with that. Like I sometimes wish I can translate whatever I am able to do so well when I'm on a trail in real life, because in real life I'm like always thinking ahead and worrying about the future and like regret things that I've decided, from the past or this or that. But in a race, I never have that problem, because I feel like that just comes naturally. Like
you're
being
just there
in the
moment.
and just enjoying it for what it is, or struggling with whatever it is that and find a solution.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I'm sure you will get there where the running, like the more you do this, because this is your second miler. I hope that as you continue to do them, then that starts to kind of go into everyday life. But I mean, even then, it's still a relatively new thing for you, which is so fascinating. It's like you've run for so long, you've had all these experiences, yet you're still learning stuff out of this 100-miler space. That is so cool. And Marie, going into, you sign up for MUT, you get ready, and kind of going into that race, was there any expectation on yourself? Was it different to UTCT? Now it's your second miler, you've learned some new things, but now it's a new race, there's that variable. I don't know if you've ever spent time in George before. How was that kind of process for you?
Yeah, going into MUT, it was definitely different to UTCT. I had a goal that I was hoping that I could get a podium position in this race, because I really wanted that UTMB entry. Not so much because I wanted to go and do the UTMB for being the UTMB, but like just to run that incredible loop of Mont Blanc. I mean, I don't think there's a trail runner that wouldn't want to go and run on that route. So that was kind of like a hope, a goal, but I also just, wanted to do the miler thing again in a new environment, and also just to see how I can how I can evolve and do better in areas that I've learned I didn't do so well, like in the previous one. Because I think there's always that sort of like, thing with wanting to do things better and to learn from your mistakes and to just test it out and see how it goes. But obviously also there's a lot of time and effort that goes into preparing for a miler, and that's actually the hard thing. Running the miler, I would say that's the easiest part of the whole process.
Yeah.
Like preparing for it, getting your nutrition sorted out, like making decisions about it, like lining up your crew, explaining to people like which Ziploc is for which thing, and then in the end messing it up anyway and like not taking half the stuff you're supposed to, but like all of that, and then of course also I have never run there, but I had this great opportunity, which was actually so valuable, to do the mindful runners. They do like, training camps for specific races. And there was a MUT training camp happening in March. I think it was in March. And I went to, and then I was in the Cape. So it was like easy to get to George.
Yeah.
And we were just a couple of people like doing the first, we split it up it was split up in 2 days, running the first 40 Ks and then also the second, 30 Ks, or the first 30 and the second 40 over 2 days. And
amazing.
So the first basically 70 or 60 Ks of the route I knew.
Wow.
And it did make a difference because I expected the worst, because but it was also because I just came from pass to pass. Yeah. So I was pretty like tired from that.
Yeah.
And then doing those first climbs, I was shocked.
So, I mean, for the route, your first climb of the day on the 100-mile race is the George VK, which is the vertical kilometer. I always, like, when I see that, I'm like, I laugh with Zane and Jacques. I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of inside joke as to why the race starts like that. But anyway, so it's like, and between the start and Herald Wines, which is the first aid station, that's 40 Ks.
That's 40 Ks.
And you've got close to 3,000 meters of vert in your legs by that stage. And you still have a long way to go. So that's just that context. So now you've seen the VK climb, and now where's your mind at?
And
Are you like, what have I signed up for?
I was just like, I haven't recovered from this like other race I did. And I was just like going, this is going to be, I was so happy that I saw it, because I was like, I would have come here expecting it to be much easier than it was. And then when I did it, so I was really afraid of that first 30 Ks. And I was saying to my coach, I'm going to die. This is going to be like really that first 30 Ks. I'm so like scared of that. But then he was also saying, you're going to do it on rested legs, and you're not going to get lost again, because on that day I got lost on the one section.
Yeah.
I followed the wrong GPS file. And then it was exactly like that. It was so much easier on the day. Yeah. I was climbing. I was like, whoa, I'm already at George Peak, because I expected it to just be, I remember it being so long and so hard. So I think also like doing things on different days can feel so different.
Yes.
And it's good to also keep that in mind. But it's also good to expect things to be hard and not to expect it to be easier than it is, because then...
Yeah, expecting it to, I mean, when I think of 100 miles, I go, dang, this just sounds hard, but I like that, like having the expectation that it's going to be hard, but being willing and keen to put yourself in that hard place, right? It's like, I've chosen this and I want to be here, even when it's really hurting. And you're like, why did I choose this race? It's like, I actually want to be here. And I mean, then you had a kind of root knowledge of the first bit, and then again, now you're going into that uncharted territory in terms of you've haven't seen the last half of the route, and this is now the second time only that you're going past this like 110K mark. So what's that like? And I mean, okay, I've got my other question just now. What was that like?
Yeah, like, I mean, it did I have to say, at that point, it was dark and you're just really focusing on what's in front of you. So I never thought of it even, this is now uncharted territory, like I was just like getting on with it and, going, like following the path.
Yeah.
But the part that I think that I did that caught me a bit unaware is and that in combination with like the heat, was the part from Oakhurst going up to Bergplaats. Yeah, that was definitely for me. That's the section that I'm still thinking back of, and I'm like, I should have listened to I was saying to myself, take your buff out, make it wet, put it over your head. Your core temperature is too high.
Yeah.
And it's like your brain is so numb at that point that you're like, I have to take it out. It's too much effort. It's too much effort.
Yes.
Cannot take this buff
That's
off.
just
it's
that
just,
much more energy expenditure.
It's like, I'll just get there. I'll just get to Bergplaats. But it's like an hour later, you're still not saying... at Bergplaats. So it's like when you have those voices in your head, you actually have to do it. And that's where I lost time, because I lost time on my target. But it's just one of those things.
And then you learn, And Maria, I mean, now also with MUT is slightly different to UTCT. UTCT, the miler starts at 5 p.m. and you basically go, okay, it's a summer's start, so you go but directly into the night. And then with MUT, it's a 2 o'clock start, which
or 12
midday.
Yeah,
but now. And for some people, they might go, oh, what difference does 5 hours make? But it's like by the time where the difference comes, I can think, is by the time you've gone like for 12 hours and into the night and the next day, it's like you've had a whole night plus these extra hours of running in the day. And you still have X amount to go, which is still going to take you into another night, if that makes sense. It's like the timing matters.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. Like for me, all my races in China was always morning, starting at 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then you would finish like early evening or nighttime or whatever, if it's 100K. And the first race I did that started in the afternoon was actually a race in Austria, which was 100K. And that started at 6 p.m. And I was so like nervous about a race starting, at that time and going into the night. And then I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because I was finished by the next morning at 10. And I was like, I ran a lot of this race at night, but you're running at night when you're still fresh.
Yeah.
And you can actually, when you're not like hallucinating so badly that you don't even know what you're doing. But with this race, then with the miler at UTCT, starting at 5, the only thing that was not so great about that is that for the time that I did, like I was finishing just like after midnight, the second night. And there's a big difference, and it's like your crew, they have to wait for you, and you like thinking, like it's becoming so late, but I just can't go any faster at this stage.
Yeah.
Whereas with MUT, what was nice is that I finished my second night was almost just an hour or 2 in the dark.
Yeah.
It was very short. It wasn't like I was going into a next night.
Yes.
And that made a huge difference. And that was because of the extra 5 hours, you know, like that you ran. But on the other hand, the afternoon to stay awake was
brutal.
hard.
Yeah.
When the sun was beating down and like at 3, 4 in the afternoon. That's also a time that naturally I think the body kind of shuts down.
Yes, you feel like you need a nap, but you can't.
Yeah. So
did you nap on the trail at all?
Oh no.
I've heard like crazy stories from people about people napping, and like somebody was like he's gonna nap and then he'll wake himself up when he like falls off his own like arms, and I was like, okay, so no napping for you.
No, definitely not. No, I never stopped. I kept moving. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting race strategy. I love that. And I mean, one of the things we chatted about briefly now was, MUT had this huge MUT campaign, female representation, and they got it right up. I think in the lead up to the race, it was 47% across the distances, women participating, which is huge. Not just for a UTMB event, but a trail event, and I think even on race day, it was actually at 50-51, which is so cool. But, that was across the race distances. But in the 100-miler space, there was a handful of women, I think, on that start line, or 2 handfuls maybe. And what was that like? I mean, going in and being one of the incredible women who runs the race, but not necessarily seeing as many people who looked like you on the start line. Did that play a role? Was it something you thought about?
I think I've kind of grown up being used to, there not being so many females around, whenever I was joining a club, even growing up running with my dad and my brother, trying to catch up to them,
Yes.
I never had really girls that I could run with necessarily. So it's not something that I found was feeling different or strange or, not to see so many females. And often also in races, I don't run with, there's not necessarily females around that you run with, although it's really nice if you do.
Yes.
I've recently had an experience at the Kromrivier Beast where I met a runner Susan McPesh, just before the race, and she's also with the Mindful Runners. So I actually knew that I had to look out for her because she's in the same group. And then we quickly introduced ourselves and whatever, and we started running, and we just happened to run the same pace. And we ended up running the entire race together. And it was just so nice to actually have that sort of company and, of a female, not that, I mean, it's nice to run with guys as well. But, to have other females training with you and encourage you, and for us to be able to encourage each other.
It's compare those notes and the specific challenges that you might have to overcome. That's awesome.
Yeah, because we have different challenges to men, and we have things periods on race day and stuff like that. And it's not always so easy to deal with. So I think that, I didn't necessarily feel different. It was a normal, but it was also good to know that overall in this race that there's so many, I think it's the most of all races. I think the ratio
of any UTMB event, it was the most
females participating, and I think it's amazing. And also the fact that this year there were more females than last year. And
an encouragement to, I think, anyone but women out there who are wanting to take the leap and move into the 100-miler space. What would you kind of advise or encourage, having done that yourself?
I think really, I don't think it would be for me to necessarily tell people, oh, you should come and do, a 100-miler, I think there will be people who would take, who would be drawn to this kind of distance, who are built for it, or maybe to whom it would be a good fit. And there would be others who would maybe thrive in a different distance. And I think it's not so much about the distance or this to be the ultimate distance or the ultimate thing to do. I think it could be an ultimate thing to run your best 10K. Or I think it's more about getting out there and pushing your own boundaries, and not to think that this is a sport that a female cannot do, or that the challenges that you may have or the fears you have to overcome, that you actually can do that. There's everybody does that on their own level or within their own capability, but it's not about the 100-mile distance, for example, also I think there's a lot of pressure in the trail running communities, like
to
that,
just go further.
yeah, you've now done a 50, when are you doing 100, and then when are you doing a miler? I mean, for me it's like, I think you need to feel that you've transitioned into that in an organic way that is healthy, and that is because you wanted to do that, or you are drawn by a certain aspect of it.
Yeah, I love that. And it's to, as you said, your own kind of challenge of, can I do this? The challenges that I face, it will be the same for other people taking this on. So that's not the reason to not do it. Try and go for it. And yeah, I think Bianca Tarberton, one of our previous guests, her whole thing was like, believe that you can do hard things because you can. And I'm hearing a lot of this from you as well, which is a great kind of internal narrative. Also for those hard moments where you're like, why am I here? It's like, because I can do this. So I like that.
Yeah, it is definitely like, I mean, I totally, it resonates with me, the idea of you have to believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
And that the anxiety that you may feel, that everybody has, like before you do something that you've never done before, is not a measure of whether you can do it or not.
Wow.
Because if I have to measure that based on the anxiety I had just before going into the race, or even coming onto this podcast, I would think that I couldn't do it, but I know I can do it. It's just stay calm.
Yeah.
And take it one step at a time.
Incredible. Marie, and I mean, with the one step at a time, we've had like, you knew some of the route, you didn't know some of it. It's the Outeniqua, it's unpredictable. We've spoken about the different start times and your experience of this compared to UTCT, but something that is clear is the person who started the race on Friday and towed that line isn't the same person who crossed it on Sunday. There's been like there's a lot of things that have happened. And I mean, you've mentioned some of it now, like dealing with the brain fog and the hectic climbs that you started with. But tell us a little bit about what happened between your Friday start and your Sunday finish. Any little details or
Saturday.
Things. Sorry, Saturday. I'm like, sorry, that's a mistake. But the Saturday finish that was maybe different to what you expected, or just some of the little stories that, because I mean, you have a lot of people who wait for you at aid stations or at the finish line, but there's lots that happens between those aid stations and then obviously between the start and finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I've mentioned before as well, like for me going through this race, I really just go at it one step at a time, because that's the only way, like my brain cannot even like comprehend, that you're gonna like run that far or for that long. If I have to think about how many hours lie ahead, or like are lying ahead, or how many kilometers are lying ahead, I don't think that I would be motivated to do it. Or so I think, sometimes, when people ask me about, okay, what did it feel like? What happened? It's such a difficult question to me. And then I realize, I think it is because when I race these long things, you're so much just focusing on the moment while you're in that moment that you don't think of the event in terms of like things that happened or whatever, because it's a kind of feeling that is very difficult to explain, because it's almost like a feeling of getting completely almost like becoming one with nature, where it's like you're experiencing the sounds and the it's almost like you have a heightened sense of awareness, if I can
Very cool.
describe it as like that, and
Yeah.
and everything feels different, and you it's the pounding of your feet on the
Yeah.
trail. It's you hear the sound of the drops on the fynbos, like you hear sort of like kind of like weird echoes in the mountains, and I don't know, like if some of it is and then obviously as you're getting closer to the finish, when you start having hallucinations, things become even more vivid because your perception of time changes.
Yes.
So what is like 2 hours feels maybe like 5 hours.
Yeah.
So you don't even feel like how long you're actually out there. But in the midst of that, you're trying to keep your head together and remember to take in fluids. You have to respond to what your body is telling you. Like now, you feel like there's water sloshing in your stomach. So you know you need more electrolytes because things are not moving, or you need more, like you're starting to feel really like flat, and know that you need some carbs.
Yes.
But nothing tastes good. So you have to like focus on doing things that your brain is telling you have to do. And you've learned and you've memorized what you need to do at what point. So there's this sort of going in and out of these two spaces of like a very rational space, and then this space where you just
it's just a natural flow, one foot in front of the other. I think it's interesting for me, you have all this outside noise in your life, your day-to-day stuff, your phone, your emails, people, even the pressure and the noise of a city. And then all of a sudden you're in the mountains and there's a job to do. You're running 100 miles and you need to eat and breathe and run, but there's this simplicity, there's less noise.
Yeah. Like I said, that's the simple part of it for me. For me, that is the part where I'm like, nobody can bother me now. Nobody can call me and tell me to do this work, or, I'm just like, I'm not available. I'm running.
I'm busy running 100 miles around the Utsnikwa. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great, like, if you ever need an out of office, like.
Yeah.
So these few days I'm doing this, so, see you on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like how if I think about the whole experience. But I mean, like, obviously there are these little things that you remember. Like I remember, like, at this one station, like puking 3 times in a row, and I've never puked at in any race.
Yeah.
Like I've never had really those kind of issues, and it was the weirdest thing because I was just almost like it didn't even bother me. I was just like, okay, this happened.
Wow.
Have some Coke, and I'm like, maybe I feel better now that all this stuff that I have to eat the whole time is just coming out.
Yeah.
But I also realize, like, I have to be careful now because I've got nothing in my system. But I know people have said that this has happened to them and they okay. It doesn't mean that now my whole nutritional plan is going to be disturbed or whatever, like, so.
Sure. That's a very like wise insight to have in that moment, that because I think it's easy to go, oh, this is something I haven't encountered, and like it's quite an intense experience to be sick on a race. So then to say this doesn't have to be the end.
Yeah. And to be like, okay, now I've also experienced it because everybody says, then I was more thinking, okay, this is now another thing that now I have to see what's happening. But everything is like, okay, this is happening. Now I see what's happening next. And you never know. I think this is the kind of thing where you never know what's going to happen from 10 minutes to the next.
Yeah.
And anything can fall apart in 10 minutes. So, I mean, it really keeps you humble in that sense that you never think that, oh, I've got this one in the bag, man. Like I'm going to.
Yeah, for sure. And we see that, right, on races where it looks like, for an example of this, I was 2 years ago live streaming the UTMB, the big lap and the miler route. And I remember my friends and I were driving to start a trail run in Hermanus, and we were like, okay, cool, Jim Walmsley first, this person second, or was it Killian first? I can't remember. For the field, the front men at least, and even the women, we were like, this is in the bag. It was less than 20 Ks for them to finish, and we were like, okay, we won't watch the finish, we're going on this run. And then we finished the run, and it was like absolute chaos, and everything had shifted around, and the top 5-6 positions were all different. Like Mathieu, it was that Mathieu Blancard and Killian had this race, and then this one bombed, and then Jim came in, and we were like, what? So it really never is in the bag. And I mean, anything can happen. You mentioned a fall at UTCT, or you banged your knee. Did you have any of those sort of challenges on MUT?
I did like tumble and rolled around a few times in the mud. I cut open a part of my hand, but then I was just like wearing this glove, even in the heat, because I was like, now, I didn't want to put plasters or something on.
Yeah.
And I was like, the glove will keep the blood from flowing, but there was not like anything.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt something through falling. I didn't have bad falls. Apart from that, it was just basically the normal sort of blisters, my feet. This is something that I've learned from UTCT. Actually, with the UTCT miler, they make you run through this like lagoon before you get to Hout Bay, which is really annoying because we didn't have a drop bag at Hout Bay, and I also didn't have crew there. It was in the night. So I was like running with sloshy feet for 60 kilometers.
Wow.
And I got really bad blisters. So after the race, actually, I was talking to Nicolette and Pierre, and I asked them I asked Nicolette, did you run through the lagoon? But like, what do you do, with these wet feet? And she was just like, she took her shoes off. And I'm like, wow, really? And I was like, and then we were talking about like how it's important, to preserve your feet, on a long race like that, because the time that you are now saving by not taking your shoes off, maybe if there's one crossing and there's still a long way to go, is going to cost you later in time, when you cannot run because your feet are covered with blisters.
Yeah.
So on MUT, I thought, okay, this time I'm going to do it better. I am going to take more dry socks and at least change my socks. Because in some places I just couldn't take my shoes off, and it was too many crossings. My feet were wet for the most part of the first, I would say, half, because of the rain in the beginning, and then quite a few river crossings and wet grass and stuff.
Yeah.
So then I changed it 4 times during the race, and it helped a lot.
Yes.
So it wasn't perfect. I still had a lot of pain from blisters, but it was manageable. So
and coming across kind of other athletes on the route, I mean, did you run largely alone when you're like sitting at the aid station changing your shoes and taking that time? Did anyone come past you? Was there ever this like, I always wonder, how much of a dice is there? Some races are very close, and there's literally seconds, which over a miler is crazy, or any ultra. But and then other moments where it's like, I ran the whole way alone, and little did I know somebody actually was pretty close behind me, but I had no idea. What was that like? And
there was in the beginning, there was the person who was in first of the females, were Janet. She was like, she passed me on the first VK climb, I think. And then, I knew she was like not so far ahead, but to be honest, like I was not so, I really set out to do this race, sticking to my plan and to run within myself, what's happening here right now with me, and not to get pulled. I made that decision as well because I was imagining that first few climbs. I was thinking, what if there's going to be these girls and they're all chasing up the hill? Am I going to get pulled into this sort of like we're gonna like,
it's like dice,
But it's more like a kind of a fun, let's challenge each other or like support each other in going faster and whatever. And I decided, no, on a long race like that, I should not get pulled into competition. It's more of a co-opetition.
Yeah.
And then I was like, people were asking me at the Herald station, they were like, are you now going to change your plan, knowing that Janet, she's actually just 10 minutes ahead? And I was just like, it's 40 Ks in.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
there is such a far way to go. Nobody knows what's going to happen to anyone, to me or her or the person behind us. Like, I was actually quite calm about that. I was not, because I was like, I would like to get a podium. That would be really nice because of that UTMB ticket. But it wasn't like I was obsessed about, now
which is great,
throwing every caution to the wind for that.
I think I remember seeing a video, one of the Instagram stories, somebody asked you, oh, like, Marie, how's it going? And you're here in this position, and how do you feel? And I think you were just like, literally, you smiled. You even took your time to answer, and you were like, there's a long way to go. And I loved that. I was like, yes, there is. And biding your time and running your race. I think when there's so much time for things still to happen, in a marathon or shorter, or even a shorter ultra, it's different. That intensity and the split-second decisions can make or break the whole race. And with a miler, it's still the decision can make or break the race, but there's more time. Yeah.
And it's all about those decisions you make, and you are aware of it. I mean, like, it's not like I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, whatever, make me a cup of tea,
Yes,
like, it's not like that. I'm
purpose.
like, I can't like close the gap too much. I have to keep focused. I have to keep going. And I've also learned, I've had to learn to be like that, because it doesn't come naturally to me to be so chasing after things and to be so competitive. And in shorter races, I've had to learn to really push and to, not to stand back, because I would always go like, oh, I'm like in this person's way. I have to get out of the way. And then actually, like, people say to me, you should take up the space that you should take up.
Great.
You shouldn't always step aside or think that you're not good enough to be in this pack. Like, go for it.
Run bravely. Stand at the start, the front.
Yeah, because I would always be like, oh, I cannot be in the start. I can, these, like, I would step to the side, and I was like, I have to learn this, because running is my way of like understanding, where I need to develop in life. And if I'm going to step aside for people all the time, like in the way that I run a race, like, then maybe that's also what I'm going to keep doing in real life. So that was for me also something to be more confident, because I had a problem with not feeling confident enough, that I can actually take on certain sort of, like, even the guys, because this is something that actually my coach said to me when I did some local races where there weren't really many girls like participating or competition necessarily in a specific race. He said, like, but if there's not female competition, you should like race the guys, because you've been here in this. And I was like, I let the guys come through because they're so fast on the downers. And I was like, I'm not going to hold them up. And he's like, no, go chase them. You can,
Yes,
and
it's also part of the competition. They need to navigate, like, you're measuring yourself as best as you can, and so are they. And that kind of tension, as opposed to just being very generous and stepping to the side. There's a place for that, but there's also a place for this, which is brave racing.
And to find that sort of thing, I think for me, it has helped me a lot, like, to have people actually guiding me in that respect and saying like, you can do that. So that was like in MUT, it was like that. And then at some point, I think, I was at a station, like Janet and I, we were at the same station, and then because I had my period, I had to take some time at that station, and that's where she went like on, and then I caught up again, and I saw her, and then I didn't see her, and it's kind of like,
it's
at
like
night,
cat and mouse. But
but it was just almost like I think I was so focused on just running my own race that I wasn't so concerned about that. Like, it was nice for me to have company at some points in the race with guys as well that I train with on Wednesday mornings.
Yes, so
and it was
cool.
nice to have this like some of the Helderberg trail runners that I know, like, and having them there, and we like, oh, we run together on Wednesdays, and here we're running together on 100-miler. That was quite nice. And then there was another guy that I also ran with for maybe a good 20-30 Ks, which is a long way.
Yeah, it's a lot of shared time, right?
Yeah.
And like, depending where you're at in the miler, you might be able to remember some of the chats, and maybe you're like, what did I say to that person? Yeah.
Or you just like, I think it's like, even if you don't say anything, there's this sort of feeling of like, okay, we just move along, and one person is pulling the other, just making you feel you're not doing this all by yourself.
All alone, yeah. And Marie, I mean, looping back to, we spoke about kind of the simplicity of being out there in the mountains and having this like amazing, almost like protected space and time. It's like you running and it's for you and it's incredible. And then coming into the finish line, you've got this there is this incredible hype and everyone's waiting for you, but you've just had this whole experience in the mountain. How was that? I mean, you were coming in to win, which is incredible, but just coming into the finish line, was it overwhelming? Like, what was that moment like? Because you've got this tension of these people have supported and waited, and this is amazing, but I think it must also be a bit of a shock to the system.
Yes, it definitely is. I mean, I think that last descent, I really like, for me, the biggest challenge was to, I wouldn't say stay awake, but for my brain to really operate, like properly, because it's almost like it is also like coming out of the mountains, coming out of the wilderness, and suddenly you're
back
in town.
Yes.
And everything just feels, it's like I can't even remember what I was thinking, because maybe I wasn't even thinking anything, because my brain was just tired.
Yeah.
And I remember my family, like actually my mom and dad and my partner Marcus, they were waiting at the trail kiosk, and I'm like, why are they here? They should be at the finish, because this is close to the end. But they were like saying, like, because they've been following, and they weren't sure. There was like some gaps in the communication with the tracker is sometimes not quite accurate because of the signals in the mountains. So they were like not sure how far the second girl was behind me. And then they said, like, but you should go, but don't get lost now because I think my partner, he knows how easily I can get lost on a trail, or especially if I go into town, like, just don't take a wrong turn now.
Yes.
And he was just saying to me over and over, when you get to the bridge, don't cross the water. Don't cross the water. And and I was like getting there, and it was a bit, when I got there, like, naturally, I think I would have probably wanted to cross the water.
Oh, wow.
But I was like, oh, you said don't cross the water.
Yes.
And then I saw the arrow, but it was kind of not so obvious. So I was like, I know why he said that to me. And then I was using my navigation also in the town, because I was like, I don't even know where I am. And, in the town, it's difficult because there's so many other noises and
and light
things and lights.
Stimulus,
and And then, like, coming into the stadium, I mean, like, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to win this race, It's like almost like a dream, But at the same time, I think it's so overwhelming, everything, and the fact that you're so tired and that your brain doesn't work properly anymore, that when I got to then, I saw this the ribbon,
tape,
and I'm like, this is like this ribbon, this
for
thing
me?
that for me, and I'm not used to, like, winning races like this, So I was like, afterwards I was like, I should have like grabbed it or something, or lifted. I see what other people do, afterwards I saw the videos, and I was like, this looks like the thing that you should be doing. And then I was like,
no, it was your moment. It was exactly how it should have been.
It is how it is, because I didn't know what to do with it. And I was just like, but I was so happy to see everyone and to catch up with all my friends and family and
Yeah.
everybody who was there to support me. And
Incredible. And I mean, you've mentioned it a few times at this golden ticket, and you get to go to the UTMB kind of World Series finish in Mont Blanc, and in Chamonix is a dream. But is that what is up next in the pipeline for you? I mean, is that next year? I assume you're not looking to go now because of the recovery
no,
between the races.
yeah, that's the plan. That if everything goes well and according to plan,
Yeah.
and I can get a visa,
Oh, I'm sure. Like somebody
Yeah.
give her a visa. Yeah.
then I would like to do that next year.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And in the lead up kind of to that, is there anything that you've got for the rest of this year, or have you taken a break?
Yeah, I've taken 2 weeks off, and then I started just like gradually getting back into it, but I'm still in that sort of recovery phase. But yeah, I will do like just races that I've already signed up for is Puffer, but that's just I'm gonna do it
Awesome.
as a fun race with people like in a group.
Nice.
So I just
love that.
I've always wanted to do the Puffer, and then one of the guys there was a guy and a girl who paced me during UTCT, and the guy asked me if I could be in there. I would come and run in their group.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, but that was already a while back. And then I found out that a big part of this thing is like on
the
road. And I was like, oh no.
Like, don't put me in for that section.
I used to do a lot of road running, but I'm like now I prefer the trails. But I want to see what it's like. And
very cool.
Yeah.
I love that you've got this like community goal almost. Like you're gonna run with people and just make it fun. That's amazing. Yeah.
So that's in the pipeline. And then Maxi, since it's now here at my doorstep, and I've heard good things about it, so I'm gonna do that. And then for the rest, I still have to decide and think and see how things play out, in my preparation. But the big focus will be to do the UTMB next year.
Amazing. Marie, this has been incredible. I feel like, we chatted a bit before and I had an expectation of how this was going to go. And even in this episode, I'm like, this is amazing. And thank you for like the little details and sharing this with us. I think it's your 100-miler kind of journey and story. And we look forward to following it as you work towards the UTMB, closing the loop there. But even the local races, it's going to be nice to have you and to see you around. It's going to be cool. And the last kind of round off closing question is just to end off, a hobby or a skill that you have outside of running that maybe people don't know about.
Well, I would say now I've already actually shared that, that I do art. I'm an artist. So
and do you
I
paint?
And this is something I would say that is a big other hobby that I have, to do creative work and
awesome
work that is mostly inspired by nature.
Amazing. And what sort of painting? I know there's different mediums. I'm not very familiar with everything.
Yeah, I mostly work in like acrylics or mixed media, where I combine like things like watercolor pencils and ink and all kind of water-based media. But also I've started working last year more in oil paint as well.
Stunning.
So yeah, it's mostly those media, and I like more large scale abstract kind of pieces. Yeah,
that's great. That's another form of bravery, being able to take a massive white canvas and put something on it. Yeah,
it's a very similar process. Like just responding to what you see unfolding in front of you, and that's kind of like how you run a miler, I guess.
These parallels are amazing, and I'm excited, Marie, in the future when we have you back and there's more racing that you've done and more kind of training and experience, and then the progression of how you've developed further as a person. I think that's the great thing about running. It just keeps kind of giving that gift of developing us. Yeah. Marie, thanks for your time. This has been great. I actually think this is going to be 2 episodes, which is awesome. So for those of you who you've now listened to episode 1, and we'll give MUT as the second side. But folks, there you have it. This is Marie, she is the person who cares about her crew during the mile and if they're waiting for her, and she's artistic and has amazing, incredible life experience and traveling all over the show. And yeah, we're grateful that she shared some of her stories here with us today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Em. This was really great. And yeah, thanks for having me.
We will definitely do it again. Thanks, guys.